In the course of that debate, those scrums have now been canceled. We are still trying to wrap our heads around to get the official reason of this from the debate organizers. Our understanding right now, in terms of the many different reasons that we're hearing, is everything from a confrontation to security concerns to disorganization from the organizers. So many different words being shared on social media, those that are on the ground, as well as emails to the group here around the table. So.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you're having a wonderful day so far. I got a good one for you today. So, I was messing around on the YouTubes the other day, and what do I notice? Rebel News comes out with a new video with some interesting information about the English debate. Now, if you watched the English debate, you might have noticed that they didn't have scrums and questions at the end of it. And Rebel News goes into quite some detail on why that is. So, if you like this video, please and subscribe. And if you wouldn't mind leaving a little something in the chat, makes this video go out further, I'd really appreciate that. And with no further ado, let's get into this.
Terry Gillen?
What are you gonna... Bro, you guys are out. You touched me with that.
No.
I did not touch you. Sir. You're a liar. You're a goddamn liar.
You're a liar.
Oh yeah, nice try, guys. You just hit me. What are you doing?
So this is straight from Rebel News, and they're explaining their whole story on pretty much what happened to them at the English debate and why it didn't happen. And this is all recordings from inside the actual building.
So we arrived yesterday and we had 4 out of the 17 questions. They weren't handed to us. We just got in line and asked them. Anyone could have done it. The questions were great, in my opinion. And so that they were off the government narrative. So for 24 hours after last night's debate, all the regime media were gnashing their teeth. They were raging, how dare Rebel News take over our event? We had 4 questions out of 17. Once every 4 years, we can get a question too. But I saw Michel Cormier, the commissioner of the Debates Commission, do a media circuit and basically get whipped and flayed by every regime journalist he talked to, especially the CBC here. Take a look at this insane broadcast on the CBC where David Cochrane basically stops being a journalist and becomes like a lawyer advocate to try and convince the Debates Commission to kick us out or something. Just watch a couple minutes of this.
Will they be able to do what they did? Like, you know, Rebel News got as many questions as I think CBC, Radio Canada, Press Canadian, and CTV or Global combined last night. There were almost 50% of the questions, and some of them ventured into territory that really are not issues in this election campaign, were not issues in that debate. And I'm not saying reporters should be restricted in terms of what they ask, but, you know, if the Debate Commission is going to organize these things, it didn't seem to have control on it last night, sir.
We're learning from what happened last night, and you'll see, hopefully, a fair representation tonight.
But didn't the same thing happen in 2021? Like, I remember vividly at the museum in Gatineau that the same sort of thing happened with people stacking the microphones and the questions is going in a totally different direction.
There's only so much we can do to control free speech, you know.
I understand that.
You gotta understand that.
But, you know, lifeguards got to look after the pool, right? And, you know, the Debate Commission was set up for this, and people are now calling for it to be completely scrapped because of what we saw last night. I just wonder if you think there's a loss of public trust in the function of this organization.
I think the public will judge us on the debates themselves.
Which I will say was very good last night. It was very well done. The actual 2-hour event was.
I think we'll be judged on that. That's the main criteria for us, to present debates that actually reach a lot of people. We have unprecedented reach. Broadcast partners, we're reaching people in communities that are often disenfranchised. I think that's a very important exercise. This is peripheral to the main event, and, you know, like I say, we'll work on it and try to make it
is it
better.
peripheral or is it part of the main?
Okay, so I can't say I liked this CBC reporter, but I enjoyed his commentary and seeing him now questioning why did Rebel News get so many questions during the debate, and we didn't get as much, when Ezra Levant literally just came out and said that CBC got 4, they got 4, and you saw how many people that Ezra Levant came in with. They went to the French debate, and he brought 5 people. And that's all really Rebel News is with their reporters. It's 5 people out east. And our big legacy media here is flipping out because they didn't get in line fast enough to get their question. That's on you, CBC. Maybe you should have been up there, raring to go, have a little gung-ho in you to get the questions in
event. I mean, you do the accreditation, you let the people in, you set the ground rules. I mean, it is all part and parcel of what's happened here.
It is, but for most people, the press availabilities, after, is not the most important thing.
Fair.
So we bank on that.
Okay. Michel Cormier, I do appreciate you showing up and taking the questions. I very much do, sir, and thank you
At
very
least
much.
I can
As
do
a
it.
Former
This is,
journalist, I know you appreciate the importance of doing that.
Totally.
All right, thank you, sir. So Michel Cormier with the Debates Committee.
Michel Cormier is a creature of the establishment, and the establishment is saying, kill the rebels. But he also knows that we've gone to court twice and thumped him because the Charter of Rights says you can't discriminate against Rebel News just because you hate us. So what would he do? Last night, at the end of the debate, he canceled the whole scrum. He said that no one would be allowed to have any questions, and in his mind, he probably thought that was quite clever because it was a way to stop Rebel News but not violate the law. All it did, though, was violate his mandate.
I'm Michel Cormier, the Executive Director of the Leaders Debates Commission, and I'm sorry to announce that there will be no scrum tonight with the leaders because we don't feel that we can actually guarantee a proper environment for this activity. Alors, comme je viens de dire, la commission a décidé qu'il n'y aurait pas de point de presse des chefs ce soir parce qu'on ne sent pas qu'on est capable d'assurer un environnement propice à la tenue de cet événement. Vous pouvez, la salle de presse sera ouverte jusqu'à 11h si vous en avez besoin. The press room will be open until 11 so you can finish filing. And I invite you to call the campaigns if you want any questions.
So because the CBC has a CBC, CTV, and all of the other legacy media has a stick up there, you know what, that some independent media is coming in and actually getting their questions in, he just cancels it all. And this is what the excuse he gave CPAC.
Is with the Debate Commission, and apparently he gave an interview on the ground in Montreal and said that the scrums with the leaders have been canceled because they could not guarantee the proper environment to conduct the scrums. That's not a direct quote, but that's a paraphrasing of what he said. So it looks like.
And I don't understand how we could say that this was an unsafe environment because it's totally safe. It's a group of reporters asking the important questions to our politicians, and they just cut it down. This is exactly what you get from Trudeau-made groups. And I hope that when Pierre Poilievre gets in, he'll cut these people. Like, this elections commission will be dismantled because if they have the power to just cancel the scrums when it's this important, that's too much power.
Are you hiding?
His job was to allow the public to scrutinize the candidates. In other words, it was an absolute public disaster. But I thought it was, in some ways, a sign that the citizen journalists have stormed the Citadel, and we can no longer be kept out. And it wasn't just Rebel News, although we were the biggest force. There were our friends from Juno and True North and Countersignal and Western Standard and others, and it was so exciting. And now let me bring in my friends. Let's start with my friend and chief reporter, Sheila Gunn Reid. Sheila, this was freaking madness.
You know, you're excited. I'm still very angry.
I am too.
I am angry because we took the blame, we're looking in, for the bad behavior of the media party. We conducted ourselves with grace and dignity, and Drea really set the tone for all of us with how to conduct ourselves. And for 2 days straight, we were subjected to bullying and derision and scorn and lies and misinformation published about us.
And physical assault.
And physical assaults, as my friend David found out tonight. I mean...
Oh, Terry Gillen! Hey!
What are you doing?
Terry Gillen!
What are you gonna... Bro, you guys are out. You touched me with that.
No!
I did not touch you. You're a liar. You're a goddamn liar.
You're a liar.
Oh yeah, nice try, guys. You just hit me. Look what you're doing. Police.
No, the police is backed by the liberal.
And yet, on the CBC, as we speak, they are painting themselves as the victims of our mere presence.
This is the state of Canadian media right here, or at least the mainstream media. How can Canadians believe that they're getting bipartisan information from these people when they start losing their minds? Tell me that is not a guy who just lost his mind right there. Starts slapping a person's microphone out of his hand, and then after that slaps a phone out of the guy's hand again. And that's assault twice by law. But of course, you know, the police aren't going to do anything. Now let's jump forward to some other things that happened.
You were subject to a berating from an unhinged Hill Times reporter for like 4 or 5 minutes straight. He was screaming, yelling, gesturing. It was really quite unhinged. You kept telling him to calm down. You didn't invite it. He just unleashed on you. And yet the room full of journalists who saw it all go down said that you were the bad guy in that.
To see rebels in his kind of place, and that we asked 4 questions and he asked none, something snapped in his noggin. Here, take a look.
Yeah, after you guys threatened to sue, so that that's why they got the 4 questions, because the commission... You're making that up. You're lying again. When did the CBC get 4 questions? Yesterday. Yes, after they had already told it to you, because you threatened to sue. You're lying again. I'm not. Because you're like, don't you have a third-party advertising truck to go take care of? How much have you spent on third-party advertising this election? Between Rebel News and For Canada, companies you own both of, how much money have you spent to influence this election? I'm assuming in favor of the Conservatives. How much have you spent? Like, you're a journalist, you must be honest. Zero. So, Rebel News Limited, that you've set up and registered under Elections Canada. Everyone else, you can go to Elections Canada right now. Every third party is registered. Search Rebel News For Canada, and you will see clear as day, as will Avant, as the owner of both of those companies. He has third party.
See, these people are children. They're whining and complaining that, oh, these people got more questions than us. Oh, and when that actually didn't happen. Let's continue on to some other backstage video that Rebel got us. So this is a little bit further in, and apparently what happened here is that the commissioner pretty much came over to Ezra Levant, asked them, hey, can you come with me? We need to talk to you about a little something. Nothing interesting. Wasn't trying to make waves. It was just kind of a coincidence what happened. And this started even bigger snowball effect. Now let's watch.
Tantrum boy. I'll call you Tantrum boy.
I mean, just anyhow, so I was chatting with him. I know maybe 10 people here, and Kian's one of them. And so because I was chatting with him, this guy concocted some conspiracy theory about how I was controlling all these different...
You're the puppeteer.
And he said, you have 13 people here. I said, no, we only have 6. No, you're 5. No, you have 13. Oh, my God. Anyhow, I mean, that's a funny, but it's also deeply embarrassing how crazy these people are.
Oh, and Ezra, I know our audience is saying, the Ricochet, what in blue hell is that? I came across it only last month because they had a hit piece on Pierre Poilievre's campaign slogan of Canada First. Evidently, that's racist and code for white supremacy.
So,
Because of you, we can't ask questions on behalf of the public. Because you wanted to have a media circus.
Maybe your ally shouldn't be trying to get the commission to do something unlawful.
It's embarrassing. Look at all of you. Look at all of you. What journalistic rationale is there to have this many people in the room? What journalistic rationale is there?
There's not 13 of us.
There absolutely are 13 of you. There absolutely are. I saw Cian Bexty coming over to Ezra throughout the debate. Cian Bexty, who supposedly has a different media outlet, was taking direction from Ezra.
you're wrong. Cian Bexty doesn't work for Rebel News.
So why did he come over to you 3 times for direction during the debate? He showed you on the he showed you his phone, and he took direction from you during this debate. So I don't think that Cian Bexty is independent of you.
You think
I don't believe that.
Cian because we're friends?
We're not allowed to talk to people? He's shaking.
Which is much less than the CBC has. You've got to control your emotions. I know you don't like me or Rebel News, and that's okay. But
what I don't like, Ezra, is you preventing us from being able to ask questions on behalf of the public.
How have I done that?
You created a circus here. Before this debate started, you created a security incident. You created a security incident before this debate started.
That guy from the Hill Times?
When you got into a screaming match with people before this debate started, and that's the justification that has been used to cancel the Q&A. So the circus that you created before this debate...
Where did you get this information?
I'm not making anything up.
Where did you get these thoughts?
We were all there. What are we talking about? In the front of this room, right before this debate. You caused an incident.
So we just saw in the video before that there was only one guy screaming there. The other, or Ezra Levant, wasn't screaming. He was talking like a normal person. Now this guy, he's blaming Ezra about bringing or too many people.
And just then, someone from the Debates Commission came in over to me and said, hey, can we talk somewhere quiet? I said, okay, whatever. So I went out with this lady, and everyone thought it had to do with this Hill Times going crazy. The timing was like this. While this guy was ranting, this lady from the Debates Commission says, hey, can we just chat? And I didn't know what that was about. So I went with her. I said, what's cooking? And she said, the CBC wants to kick you out. They said that you were... I forget exactly the accusation, but here's my point. I just want to tell you, I had left the room for a minute, is what I'm saying. I left the room for like, while the guy was great. So I was out of the room for 5 minutes, and it looked sort of official. Yeah. So I came back in, and I was chatting with Michel Cormier, the commissioner, and I was saying, when are you going to tell us the rules? Like, I was just chatting with them, and I was sort of hamming it up, because he was the guy who was hostile to us, and he was so stressed out, and everyone had been walking all over him, and I actually felt a little bit bad for him. And I was walking with him, and I didn't put my arm around him or anything, but I was like chummy with him. And I walked back in, and I had just it wasn't even 10 minutes, and every journalist was there to, what happened? And like I walked back in thinking, okay, I'm gonna go get a sandwich now or something, and there's like 20 journalists circling me, and
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Cormier, you have a comment about what is happening?
I had a heart-to-heart with Mr. Cormier, and I think we found common ground.
What's the common ground?
Kidding around. We don't have common. I don't know what is these. Yesterday, I think the independent journalists were a little bit too independent, and the regime journalists are too friendly with the regime. And I've seen a full court press by regime journalists over the last 24 hours to bring in limits to what independent journalists can do.
You mean third-party advertisers, Ezra?
You could just see him at the beginning like, what is going on? Don't these reporters have anything better to do? That's ridiculous. All these reporters are acting like Ezra Levant's one of the politicians or something like that. When literally all of this stuff happening is just Rebel News trying to get set up and trying to make sure they're the first ones to the start of the line to get their questions in. That's all it is. It's just them trying to be proactive, where the CBC and these other outlets are so used to having their questions and only their questions done, they just lay back and let things happen. Of course, Rebel News is going to get all this attention.
Can you talk about the $180,000 you're spending to do advertising, voter contact, both through For Canada and into Rebel News Network Limited?
See, you're wrong on that. And that's what concerns me, is that For Canada is a different group that was registered.
It's paid $170,000 to Rebel News Network Limited. Is that not true?
You're getting your facts wrong, Justin. And I want to make sure you're careful. We were actually talking about the CBC, who want us out of here. The CBC want us kicked out. We're not leaving. The CBC were outraged that Mr. Cormier let us in. The CBC had 4 questions yesterday. Rebel News had 4 questions yesterday. The CBC thinks that's normal, and it's abnormal that we do it.
So was he talking to you about your accreditation asking questions, or was it about the incident here right now earlier?
It was about neither. It was actually about, what's his name, the bald guy in the CBC? Maybe Cochrane. Yeah, I mean, Cochrane wanted me kicked out. I ain't leaving. Cochrane's really thin-skinned. I talked to Rosemary Martin too. I invited her to a challenge, and she declined. But that had nothing to do with it. Anyways, I want to get back to the journalism here, but it's a pleasure to be in the center of the attention. I want to give a shout out to my fellow independent journalist, Cian Bexley, proud alumnus of Rebel News. Ailey's not associated with us, but I admire his independence. And I would like to encourage everyone who's watching. You can be a journalist. If you've got a phone, you're a journalist. If you've got a Facebook page, you're a journalist. Yes, it is, Judy. In fact,
listen to them laugh when Ezra Levant goes and says, if you have a phone, you can be a journalist too. If you have a phone, you can do what we do. And they laugh at you because these hoity-toity, up on their high horse people think that you need a bachelor's degree in media underwater basket weaving to work where they work or have the prestige to go to these events. And suddenly that's not the case. And it's not the case. In our phones, we have some of the most high-tech cameras and audio that there is. And people have been doing this for quite a while. There's a guy on YouTube who goes around like Brampton and all around Ontario, and he asks people who are they going to vote for about it and why. And a lot of it's just on his phone.
I don't know, you're a government journalist. Every single one of you.
No,
he's
not government journalist.
If you get the government subsidy, you're a government journalist.
I'm not a government.
Who do you work for, sir?
I work for the Canadian Press.
Canadian Press gets massive grants from the government.
No, we don't get it. It's an admission funding.
I mean, you're literally wearing a liberal lanyard.
Because I follow the liberals, you know how it works.
So you're independent, you're owned by the government.
So, sir, we actually like to pay the government.
It's not a game.
What do you think about the third-party advertisers that are supporting this? Only your own media can ask you questions. All right, thank you.
Come on, don't run away. Why don't you answer his question? What was his question? I actually didn't hear the question. I'm flattered to be here. Let me just say this. I think that journalism needs to be democratized. And I think it's sort of creepy that the enemies of Rebel News in the press gallery stop us from asking questions of politicians 99% of the time. Once every 4 years, we're allowed to put a couple of questions to these high priests of politics, and there's a total freak out in the press gallery. Like, seriously, it's like leap year. 15 minutes every 4-year season, we're allowed.
There was you move your scrum now. We want to watch the start of the debate. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. What's that?
that's only a little bit of what happened behind the scenes at the English election debate and the chaos that ensued because Rebel News just wanted to ask as many questions as they possibly could. And just because they were there. So I don't blame Rebel News for any of this. They were there to do their jobs and they were proactive in trying to get, and they were proactive. And I agree with them. It looks like the media is just going nuts about the independent media becoming more and more prevalent in our elections. And that's important. And why is this happening? This wouldn't have happened. Think about it this way. Rebel News wouldn't be a thing if the mainstream media actually did their job. If CTV News, if CBC News, if Global all did their job, Rebel News wouldn't have even been a thing. People would have just looked at it and been like, okay, this is another news network. Yay. But there's a reason why they have 1.7 million subscribers. And they probably get millions and millions of views every day. Because our mainstream media acts like children. When they should be sitting down there, paying them no mind, getting ready, and acting like normal people. Just normal. But what do you think? Do you think it was Ezra Levant's fault for all this? Do you think Rebel News is at fault? Let me know in the comments down below. And definitely go check out Rebel News and check out this whole video that happened, because this is a 55-minute video. And man, is it some interesting. And there's a lot of stuff I left out. So definitely go there. Give them a watch. If you like them, then subscribe to their channel because they do some good work. Other than that, that's all I got for you. Have a great day.